Good evening. That didn't work quite how I wanted it to. That's a royal mailbag. There was nothing Blaster loved more than his mail, other than perhaps alcohol and swap and spit and art. But which reminds me though of one of the key things about Blaster is no matter how wild the stories he would tell you, they would often turn out to be true. And one instance with that was when we lived at the House of Wigs. Of course, he was pretty famous for complaining about how bad the mail system was, and because we had this crazy drunk singing postal man who would spend his day drinking at the Kratz Tavern about a block away from our house, and then about 5:30 come singing literally down the road and pass out a few pieces of mail. And so one day when we were finally moving out of the House of Wigs after being there a couple of years, I told the guy, hey, could I get a couple changes of address cards from you because we're moving? And his eyes lit up. Oh, you're moving? Hold on. And he ran out to his truck and he came back with like literally a giant pile of mail like that he'd been holding on to for months. You know, it's like Blaster's every fear was confirmed. But thanks for coming out tonight to honor the great Masterling. I wish I had John Burnt's nearly photographic memory to recount tales. I'd kick myself because all the days that I spent working next to Blaster, I wish I would have had a tape recorder with me a few of those days because my memory is horrible. But at any rate, this is a little piece I wrote for him called An Appointment with Dr. Phoebenuts. Well, Dr. Phoebenuts, I didn't have these lumps when I entered your office. But here they are with so many heads mewling sweetly, mewling at the body with bobcat, morning beers of word-clattering glory, the hoarded pork loins of droopy drawers Jim, a big bummer. Hey, sailor, there's a pumpkin in your anus. There is a sun behind our sun, a moon behind our moon, and the puppet strings have crossed, forcing my hand onto your leg. Here is the alley where you took a blackjack to the face for me. Here are the clover eggs fried with hangover leaden lids still sliding on the sweat-sheened ratty couch. I am not Lulu, and you were not Sidney Poitier. But if you wanted the moon, I would write across the stars the moonhead news. That news being that you cracked my mind, revealed my past to me like a turd shimmering on the end of a fork, but with promises of comets blazing ahead. And how should I thank you for that, and the Thai meals and Emmylou fried chicken? I will never know, but I will place you in the wrinkled McDonald's bag of my heart, jammed under the seat of a pickup truck. Sadly, Dr. Phoebenuts, my current insurance won't cover a mind-blowing, a near-deadly glimpse into the true reality. But I will use the one last bit of advice from my old pal Blaster. If the bill collectors are calling, always answer your phone. Juan's Taco Palace! Here tonight, a couple of Blaster's favorite old friends and collaborators, John M. Bennett, Catherine Bennett, Francis Poole. And this is a wonderful, massive tome that John and Catherine put together of every piece of work that Blaster had in the Lost and Found Times from 1979 to 2005. I mean, whew, it's quite a work. And I just wanted to read, as a lot of you might know, Blaster wrote the Wax column for Lost and Found Times. And this was his first Wax. And I feel like it's kind of like a superhero's origin tale. I feel like he kind of reveals the secret of his history and his mission in this. so I'll try to do it some justice. C.A.S.F.C, a column of insight and mystery by Dr. Ackerman. Some will say that my facts are loudish and even unsavory, but as the late great Philip Guston was wont to remark, this is merely true. There are other criteria. Your editor has asked me to do an occasional column. His only instructions were that I was to hold it down if possible to one page. He knows how I tend to go on. I didn't quite make it, but I tried. Actually, I have known about this, known that I would wind up here in these pages, or to be more truthful, in your company, since November of 1964. So you could say I have known about it for nearly 20 years. Not that I am wildly psychic or anything of the sort. I have a fair amount of intuition, but this intelligence that I would wind up here talking to you belongs to an altogether different category of experience. The explanation to such a mysterious phenomena goes like this. In November 1964, I was a prisoner of the U.S. military in Montgomery, Alabama. I was 24 at the time. Naturally, given all their low cunning and vast experience in this sort of shady farrago, the military never cared to publicly admit that I was being held prisoner. And so my true status was kept camouflaged under the nebulous title of Medical Service Specialist. A smokescreen that ostensibly included attending classes, working in the dispensary, and so forth. But they never fooled me for a second. I knew a prison when I saw one. What I did mostly when I wasn't marching to class or juggling bedpans was drink. It was old Goethe, wasn't it, who spoke about the ancient primitive distinction between an alcoholic and a drunkard? Well, I've been a drunkard in good standing off and on for most of my life. I got pretty drunk on Jack's beer with H.P. Lovecraft and Ambrose Bierce last night, as a matter of fact. But my days as a prisoner of the military during the 60s were the only time I ever came close to becoming an alcoholic. Besides drinking myself into stupors, the other things I found to do, the way a baboon might find the toes at the end of his feet, were 1, play cards, 2, read the complete works of James M. Cain, 3, indulge in solitary vice, and 4, try to mail myself. This last is a euphemism, of course. It has to do with attempts at fornication, hand jobs, blow jobs, and so on, carried out under the worst possible circumstances. What it was, I shared expenses with 3 of my fellow prisoners in illegally maintaining wheels, a wheezing 1947 Cadillac which we kept off base in a clandestine garage. The names of my fellow prisoners were Linthead, Fuckface, and Zero. Never mind what they called me. We used the Rat Trap Cadillac on weekends to entice the local Alabama belles, Waverly Brown and Rio Brown, into our company. And we became fairly widely known as 4 deadbeats who would head straight for the Magnolia Drive-In Theater with a bottle of Four Roses whiskey and extremely limited funds and try to get funny right away. And since none of us would trust the others alone with a caddy, it was always a mob scene. 8 struggling bodies in a 1947 Cadillac is still the most uncomfortable arrangement I can think of. Even when things were going well, to get to the point of euphemism, it was like trying to mail yourself. I still remember the night of November 1964, and that the second feature playing at the Magnolia Drive-In was Reptilicus. I might have stayed in the car for that second feature if I had done what my lovely companion of the evening, Nettie Sue, had done, which was to have one more slug of Four Roses and pass out. But I found myself in agony instead. It was freezing that night, and the load of jism in my shorts was beginning to dry and harden. I guess it is a good thing your granddaughter isn't here, Francis. It felt like a clammy ice plaster gripping my loins. My only thought was to reach the men's room, which was in the same squat blockhouse as the projection booth and the snack bar, and ditch the offending shorts. I would have done it the minute I staggered into the men's room, but the place was occupied by 3 or 4 crackers. I waited 10 minutes in high agitation for the room to clear, and then, by way of ensuring privacy, put my back against the door and clawed at my buttons. I eventually wound up sitting down at the floor. It seemed the only way to get my pants off over my tennis shoes, especially in my half-bombed condition. I remember standing up, my trousers in one hand, my foul, sticky shorts in the other. I still had on my sports coat, shirt, socks, and tennis shoes, and was in this cruciform posture, looking blearily around for a trash receptacle to ditch the shorts in, when I first glimpsed the other door, a metal one set in the far wall. It was directly opposite me, and as I stood paralyzed, it swung open, and the projectionist stepped through, out of his booth and into the men's room. For one long moment, we confronted each other, wordlessly. Then he said, "Well, God Almighty," and jumped back inside, slamming and locking his door behind him. I have played that scene again and again in my mind over the past 20 years. The look in the projectionist's eyes. It is sometimes given us to actually know in detail what will become of us. A kind of eerie, blinding insight into our future lives that occurs in an instant. And that night, in the men's room of the Magnolia Drive-In, I experienced such insight, seeing my destiny reflected in that man's staring eyes irrevocably. What it told me about myself was that I would never have much money, nor was I likely to become a Rotarian, a banker, a cop, a Sunday school teacher, or a pillar of any community, but that if I made it through the military alive, I might expect to have not an easy life, but an interesting one. An interesting life among others of my same ilk and kidney. There at the age of 24, and with my ruined shorts in hand, I was let in on this strange and comforting revelation. And as you can see, since we are, in fact, here together now, that's pretty much the way it's worked out, you little cutie. Thanks, we got a bunch of great people paying homage to Blaster tonight. The next up is fabulously famous for many things, but one reason for being the subject of the John Eaton recommendations. Here it is, the one and only John Lucky Charms Eaton.
It's all true. On a toothpick. Okay. It's really great. Yesterday, last night, everything that happened was really great. Tonight's really great so far. It's really cool to feel Blaster really close. It's really awesome. This is a piece I've been working on the last couple days, and it is called "These Are All Words from Blaster Al Ackerman." A B-arc, bulk, black balkan, markable, leaseback tabernacles. Elk bark, blacks, blacker, clam bake, blackener, marketable sacrament as black, bleak, blanks, maskable beanstalk, and ask, lark, bal, bulks, Alaska, brakeman, blanketers, at eek bake blank barrack, barracks, tamaracks, caretakers, meek and beak bask, embark blanker, blackens, mackerels, albask, crawl. Bleaker, blackest, telemass, blankets, caulk, breaks, blanket, celebrant, bralac, break, backers, alabaster, resemblant, barker, break, bracken, brackets, kale, barks, beaker, and barks, mackerel, cab, leak, backs, barker, bracket, barnacles, lar, lakes. Embank trackman, ban backbeaks, bankers traceable nab, glank karma, talk larks, earmarks cleanable. Bat rack banks basket breaker, tab mark, caulks rankle and banks skeletal ale, slack, setback scrambler, rake lax, slacker namesake, Albertans, Salsark, clank, Iraq, Rebex, tea cake, stableman, alt, nar, curbs, talker, trackers, semblance, all rank, carrot, clanks, ransack, meerkats, car, cart, becks, tackle, betakes, marketer, celebrant, arc cake clerk, ram, make, steak clerks, arm, lakes, rankles, barnacle, stableman, marcask, leaks, ankles, tremblers, anasac, kales, talkers, bee elks, ankle, anklet, stalker, scramble, ancestral, ben, keels, talks, creaks, tackles, balances, lacerates, beat, bet, leak, stalk, canker, berserk, elm, mask, creek, masker, smacker, crake makers, Albertan sacrament, are knelt maker, cranks askance, remake lakelet, ear sake, crank, tacker, tea cake, nameable larceners ran, marks, racket anklets, tameable selectmen, art, track marker, rat take, smack market, ace, kernel stacker, eel, scat rakes, tracks, can reek anchor, snark nakers, tracker almanacs, act neck, nars, kells, meerkat enablers, cat meek, taker takers, kernels, bleeders, man eek, stark streak, mat seek, necklet, caramels, netballs, see cakes, strake sneaker embraces at 8 keen, eat Kent, 8 ball, eat lamb, sat balm, snack trembles, 10 Arab sleek casket trembler, ant, leaks, kneel, cake, stack, ball tax, slab celts, albs, knelt cabals, rex, balsam, blamers, men, creek, marbles, escalates, met crab, snake, rambles, sea barm, sneak, lamer, lammers, 10 bear steak, net braid takes, bear steak ballers taken, clearest scarab, brat blares, Carl reeks, bellman, canister, barman, casemate, anal necks barrel, beam scheme, almanac learners, beamanese, Albert relators, Belkeens, cable barrels, scab skeet, blames blaster cabal, creamers, stable screamer, belt labels Albert's cremates, comb balsa, bleeder narrates, clam ballet serenata, Earl Banal maraca caramel, real tabla, lambent lecterns, rascal embrace manatees, ballets, bass alber, scalar netball, sacral abaters, bean cable enable, beta blame, Catalan terraces, amble carnal baseman, stable mascara streamer, lambs, maraca casement, Arabs tables, enable tremble, alarms, malars, beltane, manacle, stab bales, male blase, lame stable, meal samba, bracer, rebels, clan alarm, arcana arsenal, area bleat, slam table, became treble callers, malt brace, calmer sellers, teal bears, barren cleaner, tall brats, berate scarlet, Mars, mackle, rectal rentals, rams, camel, claret, sternal, bees, atlas, tarmac, relearn, beat, acme, mace, embers, arcane, urn, snarl, salter, creamer, Star skull, learnt lectern. Manatee. Arenas, cream screen, cram scram. Caterer terrace. Cements, cranes, crease, namers, racers. Meat cells, smart tamers. Clambake, meerkat, namesake, seance. Earmarks, tea cakes, caretakers, seance. Ancestral scramble, seance, seance. Tremblers, seance. Erasers, seance. Albertan, seance. Blaster, seance. Thank you. And Rupert, I know that the last time I was at Rupert and Everly's house, Everly had this incredible list that I'm really hoping one of you all brought tonight, maybe. Oh, I'm not even going to say anything else about it. That's awesome.
Yeah, Everly was very fascinated by all the names that Blaster had nicknamed some of the pretend customers in the bookstore. So I'll, if she can find it on her phone, I'll do a reading of some of those. But next up, a long-time Shattered Wig regular, long-time friend of Blaster. It was funny, this next reader, Batworth, reminded me that in his copy of the Omnibus, which I guess first came out in 91 or 92, was not too long after this crazy road trip a bunch of us took. It was me, Blaster, Batworth, and Gavin McCullough, Courtney's brother. We all drove to North Carolina to do a reading in this place called the Bourgeois Pig, run by a friend of Mock Hosfeld. And Mock put it together, and Mock was going to read. And so we left really early in the morning, right after a furniture falling down the stairs practice, which was a band I was in with Batworth. It involved, 3 hours of drinking while preparing for practice. Then 3 hours of practicing with drinking, and then 3 hours of drinking after practice. So not in good shape the next morning. And then we did this amazing, wonderful reading. It was really fun. Everybody really commanded the house. But I had the misfortune of, in the van ride home, losing a bit of my lunch out the window, which flew into the back seat and caught this next reader in the hair. Luckily he had very long hair. And seated next to him was Blaster. So Blaster wrote in his copy of the Omnibus, Batworth, many thanks for catching Rupert's foul bile that night. But share that. Yes, my little AA confession. So here is Mr. Chris Batworth.
His energy is all over here. It's all in the walls and everything. But anyway, what he really said was to Batworth, who once protected me from Rupert's foul projectile. He also said, I think after that, I laughed so hard I wet my fly. I'm only going to read a couple short. I'll read a couple short, just a few things, but this one goes way back for me. I remember hearing, this might have been one of the first pieces pieces I heard Blaster read, and it just stuck with me, and it's called, Pumpkin in Uranus. And when I heard it, I think my anus was just blasted out of the solar system, that's for sure. But, so, okay, here we go. Pumpkin in Uranus. The other afternoon, it felt like Friday, but it was only Tuesday. I was down on the rug between the coffee table and the couch, thinking about the Republic of Plato taking shallow breaths. A woman with orange skin was doing exercises on TV, and I started to think about how it looks. I mean, how it looks when a torn-up mule floats through the air. And how sunglasses can make a difference, and how sometimes the difference between a sense of terminal despair and a neat sense of humor is no larger than a frog's waz. And it was rather sinister because the next time I looked, the woman on TV had been replaced by a long-haired dog. Meanwhile, the nap of the rug was starting to rub a bald spot the size of a dime on the back of my head. And oh, insight. Remember, this is the last year of your mind for the rest of your life. Pumpkin in Uranus said. The sun makes another revolution, and so does the moon. There's a sardine flopping in every row of corn you get. You get up only to go lie down again, which was true enough, I thought, though not exactly news. Only Tuesday, nothing for it but to lie there and hold the good thought that Lassie is really a deformed guy in a dog suit. God, man, it's just altering reading. And reading his stuff aloud. I mean, I've listened to him read it for so long, and now I'm starting to read it aloud, and it's just like, it's great. It's a whole new thing. Okay, these I'm going to read a couple from the Mistopies, the Tiny Special Stories, which are hacks of John Bennett's poetry. And I found these to be very, very good to read. So, okay, so here's a couple. This one's called They're Really Tiny Stories. So, here's another tiny special story, The Rubber Ant. Sometimes there isn't time to find out what's true and what's falsy. Sometimes you gotta set a fire and find out later. A week ago, I said it was time to allow the buzzing lantern inside your face. Problem was, I'd lost my wallet. Now I was forever in this month and kept hearing a burst of mind. You're smelling the seat of a chair and slumping down near where I live in the coin box of a bus, and you're ready now to take form in the medicine cabinet class. Or does that buzzing lantern in your face already resemble a stupendous struggling insect, one that's guiding itself, directing its own mad flight? But here the voice went off into peals of wild laughter and tried to borrow money. And that wasn't all, because the bag of lunch I carried between my knees was jerking like a magic act at about the time when a thin tamale color existing inside the bag was no longer apparent. What an uncertainty this was. At times, it could even make me forget whether or not I saw walls inside my car in front of the steering wheel, or had already sat down crash on a window that used to gape in a wall. In short, it had turned me into a real dauber, and I kept putting in the pocket of my shirt a handful of nails and a rubber ant. Prunes. It was an evening in prunes, an old affection for prunes, and whatever other hogwash gets through behind your head. I had once hid in a hollow behind a clump of prunes, where I was surrounded by a thick barrier of titan shapes, like ferns. These were surrounded by a thick barrier of worms, their shining arms joined beneath pride of the Navy primitive in a person's nose. I heard it when you sang or coughed. The new closet joined your silly rope, and the hostile list like pork ice whistle foaming in your pants. No surprise there. It's a thankless position, not worth the mysterious beings who roam the gravel and touch and taste portent of scandal and pulling out what appears to be prunes with crusts and hair. I wonder how you can picture the summer's growth of prunes, dark and wrinkled and floating there above the black sizzle of your frilly scrotum, clinging to the tall waiter there, where thousands of little men and women floating there in a queer kind of corruption. If the little men and women floating there were inherently impossible, it changed everything. Very honored to be here.
Here's a partial list of some of Blaster's customer namings that Waverly is keeping track of. Stalker Walrus, Plum Dandies, this is my favorite, the man whose ass was made of cake, and it perfectly captures him. The Irish Gangster, the Mayor of Duckville, the Bagman, Frozen Pea Head, Le Flaneur, the Scorched Leprechaun, Bicycle Smelly Man, Black Barbie, Mr. Liberace, and, of course, the Vulture. Actually, Marvin was on the list, but it's just his name, Marvin. Marvin was kind of our mascot.
The Duke of Dung.
Oh, the Duke of Dung, and the Duke of Dung. We actually had two gentlemen. There was the Duke of Dung, and I forget what the other guy was, but we had two. Right, right, the Marquis of Merde. But we had two gentlemen who loved to visit us about once a week or so back in the days, always with shorts fully loaded. And they loved getting you into their objective was to get you cornered somewhere in the back and just have you present next to them. that was
And
the.
you talked to me about the children's book.
Next up, we're going to have another special treat from the very talented artiste who runs this magical space lo these many years, Madame Dragoul. Oh, okay. It's going to be a little bit of setting up time before the magic can happen.
Mesdames, Messieurs, and all others, welcome. Tonight, in the spirit of one Blaster Ackerman, aka the Ling Master, we invite you to join us Mesdames, Messieurs, and all others, welcome. Tonight, in the spirit of one Blaster Ackerman, aka the Ling Master, we invite you to join us in a sensorial experiment. An experiment that, in the words of Proust, will enable you to tap into the vast primordial soup of recollection. This session in recall will involve the use of your sense of smell, your memory, your voice, and modern technology. This evening's specimens have been collected from the life as well as the works, writings, scribblings, novellas, newspapers, the what's-nots, and the some things of the late Dr. Ackerman himself. They are designed to bring the Ling Master to mind. Please listen carefully to these instructions. Then, together as a group, we will commence. Each one of you will receive a blindfold. At the determined time, you will be asked to put it on. The blindfold will help you concentrate more fully on your sense of smell. Those of you that feel uncomfortable with the blindfold may simply close your eyes. You will be gently tapped on the shoulder, then an olfactory specimen will be placed directly under your nose. When this occurs, please take a great whiff. Experience the smell and let it take you where it will. Simply explore and experience. Seek Blaster with your nose. Associate the smell with Blaster in his life. When, where has this smell been a part of an experience of you and with Blaster? What is the sound of this smell? Your response will be recorded. Please speak, sing, grunt, etc. clearly into the microphone. Once we have collected all the responses and the session is complete, your collective responses will be played back. Until then, please relax and remain seated. Thank you. We are now ready to begin. Please put your masks on, or
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Sleepy Hollow.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. Forkland.
Manatee sweat.
Forkland. 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 Forkland.
Shoes. Shoes.
Manatee sweat. Manatee sweat.
Sleepy Hollow.
Shoes. Shoes.
Manatee sweat. Manatee sweat.
Shoes.
Sleepy Hollow.
Shoes.
Manatee sweat. Manatee sweat.
Shoes. Shoes.
Manatee sweat.
Sleepy Hollow.
Manatee sweat.
Shoes. Shoes.
Manatee sweat. Manatee sweat.
Shoes. Shoes.
Manatee sweat. Manatee sweat.
Shoes. bandages, shoes, shoes, bandages,
Manatee sweat.
shoes, shoes,
Manatee sweat. 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 Manatee sweat.
shoes, shoes,
Forklift, 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 forklift,
Manatee sweat.
forklift, forklift, forklift,
Hair.
forklift,
Hair.
forklift, 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 forklift,
Manatee sweat.
forklift,
Hair.
forklift, forklift,
Hair.
forklift, forklift,
Yes. Manatee sweat. Hair. Hair.
Some kind of banded cotton, banded belly hair, cotton banded belly hair,
Hair. Hair. Hair.
mimeograph, mimeograph, mimeograph,
cotton banded belly hair. Cement. Sidestepping.
Cement.
Hair.
Sidestepping.
Hair.
Sidestepping. Hydrofoil.
We are now listening
Hair.
to the cosmic sewer, the recall of the
Cement.
sense found
Cement.
in the stories of Blaster.
Hair.
Sidestepping.
Hair.
Sidestepping. Sidestepping.
Hair.
Thank you all. Aspirin and iodine and Vaseline and wine and sewing machine, machine oil. So that was that.
Phew, that definitely brought back the spirit of Blaster. Next up, that's a tough act to follow. But next up, perhaps the next reader, his last meal was a hot dog at Wawa, so perhaps he will add to our odiferous sensorium here with all the way from Delaware, Mr. Francis Poole.
If I have to leave mid-sentences because of that hot dog, it won't. Dear Francis, this is June 2010. Blaster had suffered a stroke, and this is a letter I received while he was still in the hospital. Dear Francis, first things first, let's clear up this surgeon turned away business. Number one, the phrase, quote, from the branches and into the branches, unquote, should be italicized like this. Quote, from, underline, the branches and into, underline, the branches, unquote. Number two, you also asked about kneading or kneading, N-E-E or K-N-E-A. I think, quote, a woman kneading and rolling something soft and flat works best. Please go on to next page. So here I am in the rehab building. For how long is anybody's guess? I'm expecting to find out on Thursday. Some of the staff is excellent, others are quite bestial. Keep writing me, care of Burnt, 2732 St. Paul, Baltimore, Maryland, 21218. Whoops, Stephanie Parker, the filmmaker, is coming in. Well, that was a nice visit. I never know who's going to show up. I spend the morning from 8:30 to noon doing physical therapy. Really the best part of my day. Visitors get tapped to mail letters. I always try to have something ready to go in the box. Meanwhile, my roommate is yelling
into the phone about this and that. He's a maniac, make no mistake. His greatest moments seem to occur directly after meals. I'll write more to you about this in my next. Right now, Rupert just came in, and it's time to, sorry. It's time to go on to the next page. It's time to mail this bugger. Oh yeah, baby, your pal, Blasterthon. And then he wrote at the end, quote, "My only advice is, if you can get me to offer you $5,000 not to open the door, take the money and go home. Monty Hall." So I guess he was kind of chained to a room, or chained to a bed in a room where there was a television. I don't think he watched a lot of TV. At least he told me, he didn't watch much TV, which was probably good for him. I just want to say something. I'm going to read a couple of things from Break Up My Water, which Blaster Al was generous enough to collaborate with me on. And the note in there about do this, write it this way, is really characteristic of how we work together. He basically, as soon as we started, talking about it, he said, "I want to drive," and so it was basically I was in the back seat and he was the driver, and we ended up with this little book of poems, letters I would write. He would then insert himself into the work and change them in ways that I really thought made them better. And so I was very flattered and very honored to have the chance to work with him on Break Up My Water, which is his title, by the way. Little side note, he had a stroke in 2010. When I first met my wife, and I told her I would try to write poetry, she said that she really hated poetry, had no interest in it at all. And Blaster had his stroke in 2010 in June, I believe, and my wife had a stroke in December that year. And following her recovery, we made a trip down here, and Blaster was reading. I think it was one of the first readings after he had, sort of recovered. And strangely enough, after her stroke and after hearing Blaster read, she now likes poetry. So I guess I owe that to something. I don't know, Blaster, something. I'm going to read something that's kind of an example of where he took something that I had hammered together and then made it into something that was, to me, a lot more interesting, a lot more fun. It's called Axes and Hamburgers. Axes and hamburgers were in fashion for a while in Idaho. There seemed to be a food cart or grill sizzling on every corner in Boise. The smell was a little like burnt hair mixed with teriyaki sauce. And even drugstores sold axes, some double-bladed. My old Japanese friend and I met one afternoon for drinks in a little downtown bar. He said he couldn't remember the names of herbs in his native language anymore. His eyes filled with tears over shots of warm sake. Did you come to the U.S. after the war to escape the horrors or to become westernized and make a lot of money? I don't know, and it doesn't matter because I am now too old to remember much about those days, except for lying on the deck of a transport crossing the Pacific with the sun blazing down on us day after day. The ship's toilets were clogged, so I had to squat and shit over the side with cold salt spray hitting my ass. Somewhere in the middle of the ocean, I felt the cord connecting me to Japan snap, leaving me adrift. I was given one towel to use on the voyage and wrote a poem on it with a toothbrush and some black paint I got from the crew. This is the poem. I found only my mother's bamboo basket filled with glistening fish sitting near a scorched cherry tree. Her neighbors had all disappeared too. When the ship docked in San Francisco, it was late afternoon, and I waited until all the other passengers had disembarked. Finally, I wobbled down the gangway to the quay, feeling dizzy and nauseous. My last meal of rice and fish I vomited into the bay. I wandered off towards a noisy street lined with bars and cheap seamen's hotels. Then I found a market and tried to trade my towel for a cabbage, but no go. That first night I had nothing to eat except bread scraps I stole from some seagulls. For refreshment I found a few discarded beer bottles and drank what little liquid remained in them. After a few weeks I found a job in a box factory gluing pieces of wood together with a brush and glue pot. As soon as I made some money, I had my first hamburger. It became my favorite food and I ate them every day. I thought of hamburgers as American sushi. Soon my body grew large and round like the Buddha or Orson Welles. In time, English replaced my native tongue. I was granted citizenship and renounced the emperor. As the years passed, I began to look like a fat John Wayne. Now I am old and still eat hamburgers every day. Yet I grow thinner. My hair is thinner. My legs and feet are thinner. My hands are thinner. Even my teeth are thinner. Soon I'm afraid I will be as thin as a rice noodle and become Japanese again. The blaster took that. Wait, you'll hear the blaster in a second. I have no, I'm totally disorganized. Okay, here it is. This is Blaster's version after he dove in. It's called Not a Moment Too Soon. 1. Born in Shanghai, China in 1930. Studied medicine at Cambridge before becoming in fashion for a while as a glue pot in Idaho. There seemed to be a food cart grill sizzling on every corner. In Boise, the smell was a little like burnt hair mixed with teriyaki sauce. Somewhere in the middle of an ocean voyage, certain recent works of his mark a distinct stylistic departure. 2. Drowns. Reborn 1935, and has by now participated in remembering all the names of herbs in his native tongue. This is such foolishness that for the rest of the voyage, as he lies on deck with the sun blazing down on him, he experiences thoughts that are above the earth, as the Greek businessmen like to say, and these incontinently continue to worry the shit out of him. 3. When the ship docks in San Francisco, it is late afternoon, and he wobbled down the gangway to the quay, feeling dizzy and nauseated. That first night, he has nothing for refreshment but what little he can find remaining in the discarded beer bottles outside Bouncer's Tavern on the waterfront. After a few weeks, he hits his stride with a pocket-sized magazine which bears his own name on the cover. Nevertheless, he continues to think of hamburgers as American sushi, and in consequence, his body grows large and round like a fat John Wayne. 4. Now he is old, and still he wonders if he will ever meet the wonderful helpmate that wise men have told him possessed those real massive hangers. He still has hope. Yet he begins to grow thinner. His body thus betraying him, his hair turns thinner, his legs and eyes and teeth are thinner, etc. Licking a mirror for days on end, he is soon picked up and brought downtown for questioning. I mean, I don't know. What can It's an example of someone getting schooled by Master Ling. This is one of my all-time favorite poems. I think it appeared somewhere else, but anyway, he said, well, let's put it in this book. It's called, I don't know how to pronounce it, N-G-G, the Frog God. Ever heard it? One afternoon, I was hanging around in the yellow weedy space out behind the 7-Eleven when I found a kind of sump hole in the ground. It seemed filled with tapioca, and I took my shoe off and unwrapped the bandage, and as I got my foot down into the oozing wetness, I wiggled my toes around and around, and eventually saw that it was 1,000,000 frog eggs ready to hatch, and that they had all coalesced around my foot as though to kiss and love on the sores, and that before long the newborn frogs would be worshiping my foot like a god. Then I very carefully began to hop on my other foot and was able to reach the store and go inside without losing or dropping off any of the heavy shining ball. And the man in the green felt vest behind the register was trying to yell, and nothing but a dry croaking that sounded like nig, nig, nig was coming out of his throat. I mean, there's a new flame midget. One poem that is unlike any of the other things he had sent me over the time we were corresponding. It's unlike anything I've read by him, and it had a strange kind of seriousness that, you know, Blaster was always tweaking reality to, he's trying to, I think, put some fun back into living. And this poem is different. It's called My Name is Sky King. I am staying in my room mostly, and if I leave it, it is to eat in the kitchen during Mrs. Packer's illness, or to sneak a book from the library off in the living room. I had not set foot outside the house in 7.5 years. God has nothing to do with it. To use your words is hardly my concern. It really isn't here anymore. You haven't a worry in the world. I did not come here to gloat. Well, what if the phone should ring and I should suddenly find myself talking with him? You answer the phone sometimes. I came here to prevent that embarrassment for you. I'm sorry if you can't see it that way. Let me turn and start out the door. But first, let me flick the light bulb as I shut the door. Al liked a couple of my poems, and if I have time, I'd like to read two, if I could. One that he's especially liked, which is Raw Sex, and I think Rupert started off with a nice sexual poem, so here's one if I can find it, and then I can find it, where is it? Terribly sorry to be wasting this time. Under the Bridge. Okay, this is sort of based on memory. Well, it is memory. Through a blender and other things. Called Under the Bridge, and it was written in Florida, and mostly true. Blaster, this is for you, man. Ronnie was 15 and I was 13, his personal watchdog and voyeur. Charlotte was barely 14, a long-legged tomboy with wide shoulders, slim hips, and hard little breasts. One August night, Charlotte met us at the far edge of her backyard. Ronnie put his arm around her waist and she squeezed my hand as we turned and walked through the bushes behind her house toward the interstate. Where the highway crossed the river, we slid barefoot down the sandy bank to a cool oasis under the bridge. There, with the blue glare of approaching headlights sweeping by just above our heads, Charlotte held her peasant skirt up to her waist, and Ronnie slid her panties down and tossed them aside like a junk food wrapper. Then they moved further into the dark, while I stood guard, feeling wild and hot as a cigarette flicked from a speeding car. I think I'll end there. I know Al saw John about a year after Megan McShay and I, we happened to be in Austin and we went to visit him. And it was a great experience being with him outside of Baltimore in a kind of a different space. And he seemed a little bit down, a little bit weaker than I remembered him. But he still had I don't know how to define wisdom, but I've known a couple of people in my life that had something that seemed to be part of their DNA, and you couldn't ever quite, you'd reach for it, you'd try to learn from it, but as someone said once in a eulogy, he was like a carp in a pond of koi. It just kept the koi from getting too fat. And one of my favorite lines, he used to write on a letter when I get the letter, this one line I can never forget is, "My lips never touched sternum." Just kidding.
Thank you, Francis. Francis edits a wonderful journal named Blades. And and actually I remember Francis is yet another fine person who got to meet through John Bennett's Lost and Found Times. Had read Francis's great poems for years, and I remember before either me or Blaster met you that he often called your poetry some of his favorite in the magazine. Always. So we have 2 more people, and then we're going to have a break, and then there'll be John M. Bennett and Catherine Bennett, a performance by Lauren Ross, and wild music by Neil Feather, Eric Franklin, Dan Breen, and Bob Wagner. But next up is Megan McShay, who has a wonderful new book out called Mountain City of Toad Splendor. It's an incredible, beautiful book. And for years, she kept a great writing group together that made Blaster and the rest of us very happy being a part of. Megan McShay.
First reading I've ever brought scissors to. That'll be the finale of my reading. Just intrigue you a little with that. A couple stories. I've been reading this one poem that made it into this book Rupert mentioned a bunch, so I'm not going to read it tonight, but I'll tell you the story behind it, which is that Blaster's way of dealing with telemarketers, which he shared with me. I don't know if he always did this, but he told me he did, was just to basically like groan until they hung up. So about 10 years ago, Rick Royer was putting together this performance event, and it was all assignments, like he gave these sort of oblique assignments to people, and Blaster and I teamed up, and I was sort of psyched to be like on Blaster's team. And but before we got the assignment, Blaster already knew what he was going to do. And I was like, Blaster, that's not how it works, because I'm all into rules, you know? And he was like, no, I think we just need to like conceal a small amount of sauerkraut in our hand. And of course I was like, great, yeah, I'll do that. So and then he said, yeah, then we'll try to get other people to conceal a small amount of sauerkraut in their hand. So we did this, and it didn't match the assignment at all, but it didn't matter because it was Blaster. And it only struck me literally in the last few months as I was thinking of looking over all my Blaster stuff since he passed away, that I don't think he ever actually did conceal any sauerkraut in his hand. I think I was just one of the people he convinced to conceal a small amount of sauerkraut in his hand. So a little bit before that, I had decided to apply for a residency as a writer, which is like my first thing in the world where I was like, okay, I'm a writer, you know, give me your, you know, residency because I'm a writer. And I was really insecure about it, and I figured I'm gonna ask Blaster to be one of my, to write a recommendation for me because the only way I really want to be anywhere is if they would like read something he wrote and want me to be there. So, so I brought the recommendation he wrote to read to you. At the top it says, teach the planet's bear-like inhabitants. And the return address is Dr. Al Ackerman, Dinbo's Feed and Grain, 425 East 31st Street, Baltimore, Maryland, which is Normal's. To whom it may concern, Megan McShae's literary experience has been a novel one because she went right from college into door-to-door novelty sales. Her habit of wearing X-ray specs and a long wax nose dates from this period, I believe. She also spent a summer in the fields of Nebraska where they harvest the globe artichokes, sugar beets, and lesser broalia. She was, I am willing to bet, quite well thought of in this field. My feeling is that when fatigue came over her, she would grant herself a brief rest. She would take up a position between two riverbanks at Mid-Bridge, and it was there at Mid-Bridge, during breaks in her pensive siesta, that it was easiest to start a discussion with Big Bob and other passing tramps, of which the most frequent topic was peanut butter, toilet paper, water. Needless to say, all of this has carried over into her writing. Nowadays, as a charter member of the Watchful Orioles, what we call our little literary workshop that meets here in Baltimore Monday evenings, rain or shine, she has become justly renowned for her recreation of Albert Payson Terhune's classic canine adventure story, Lad, a Dog, which in her version remains highly plagiaristic in every detail, except that hers is called Lud, a Dug, and is about a grave robber. Obviously, this is the very opposite of automatic writing. Moreover, the conditions under which her stories and poems, i.e. her borrowings, come into being impress upon them as a deeply felt need to one day create a perfect neurotic approximation of that modern day classic Pat the Bunny, fake pink felt fur and all. Something not quite right about that last sentence, but you get the drift. And what is perhaps most important to teach all us simps the special virtue of the unjustly erotic, which, so far as Megan McShae is concerned, lies in its power to entice us beyond the boundaries of reason and common sense, or as she herself is fond of getting up and yelling at cocktail parties when the shellac brown highballs are coming thick and fast and she really gets to lapping them up. What are you doing there, heavy black serpent hanging down from my navel? Would you like to help me recreate the Mahabharata by any chance? What's more, she does all this while rubbing her stomach and patting her head, absolutely stupefied. It's uncanny. Although she is paying me precious little to write this letter, I have practically no hesitancy in recommending her for a stint on your farm. There is no rush about it, however, as I may be confusing her with John Dos Passos. With sincerest best regards, Dr. Al Ackerman. So I got in. And I've been back to that place like 6 times. It's really great. It's called the Hambridge Center. It's in Georgia. You should all go right now. But then Blaster, every time I went, he would insist that I was going to go live in a hollow log with a squirrel. How's that hollow log? I thought I would read a couple of things from our writing group, which went on for like 10 years or so, and Blaster was like, such a great collaborator, as many of you know from experience. So some of these are things that like he wrote himself, and then some of them are things that we wrote as a group, and I'll tell you which are which. But I think some of the ones that we wrote as a group, you can sort of pick out his sentences. So that'll be a fun party game. So this one is from a list exercise where we just sort of came up with a list subject and then wrote a list of those things for 5 minutes. And this is a list of fireable offenses, or things that could get you fired if you do them in a work environment. And this is all Blaster. 1, branding yourself on the side of the neck with the company logo. 2, constantly talking fellow workers into playing the M&M game with you. M&M game is where you stick 2 M&Ms up your nose, put your head back, and see who can blow the M&Ms the farthest. 3, wearing things in your shoes that change the character of your gait. Something different each time you go to work, i.e. liver, gravel, cat litter, spam, etc. 4, using mucus instead of hairspray or hair gel. 5, painting eyeballs on your eyelids so you are looking at people even when your eyes are closed. 6, keeping your cigarette lighter in your pocket and flicking it constantly to the point of nearly setting your pants on fire. 7, stuffing toilet paper, paper napkins, etc. down inside waistband of your slacks until your hips begin to look elephantine. 8, same as 7, but tell people to call you Jumbo. 9, announcing in loud voice, I'm not wearing any underwear, but my ankles are painted with India ink. Put your foot up on chair to demonstrate. 10, if you have any teeth missing, make a false tooth or teeth out of bread. And talk about which type of bread, rye, wheat, etc. makes the best, longest lasting tooth or teeth. Show this around a lot, especially at lunchtime. 11, use your lunch breaks to openly practice heavy scarification while talking about your abusive parents, spouse, minister, etc. And 12, see how long you can go without washing your hands. Okay, this one is, it's a few 1-minute stories, which is just like, we just like write a bunch of titles down and throw them in a hat, and then we pick one out and like set the egg timer, and we have a minute to write a story. So bear in mind, like, he didn't get to revise any of this stuff, so I don't know if he'd really endorse it, although he has read it. Anyway. So this one is smelt. I'm a little vague on this one, the typing teacher said. Shit on your head, Freddie Held shouted. This was the school for the blind fish. Skeleton. The skeleton dancing across the lawn. The skeleton peeping out from behind the shower curtain. The skeleton in the bread box, smaller than the others, so obviously it was the baby. Jacket. That is the ugliest jacket I've ever seen, I told the potato, but it said nothing in response, merely eyed me. Salt lick. The deer crept forward eagerly, but the salt lick turned out to be a statue. Moral, civilization and its discontents. read a couple of the group ones. This was, a lot of the ones we did we called lardings, which was like we'd all have a sheet of paper and we'd write something on it and pass it, and we just pass it around until the sheet was like full of words, basically. And so we'd have like 6 of them, or however many people were there. A lot of times Blaster would just write the same thing every time he got a sheet of paper, and it created this really great echo in that group of writings. Kind of brilliant. Anyway, so this one was me and Blaster, Chris Toll, Adam Robinson, Amy Peterson, Marceline White, Heather Rounds, and Rupert Wondlowski. I wouldn't call it an attack, more like some Andalusian spring-fed spasm, like something springing out of my neck, wire-like, and it would hum the sweetest tune. Here I won't say, albeit. The ache of the shells have holed up the ocean. Baby smells of butterscotch and spit-up slough off her as she sweats. Quack, quack, quack. Her laugh is a short half-choke between a sneeze and a snort, between the meadow and the window, a place for that grinding, wincing feeling behind the garage by the Rose of Sharon. Why do we question the science of sound? Faith crisis, faith crisis. Hand me my Graham Greene decoder martini, pull up my soul stockings. But where will it go when it's rubbed out from beneath you? I've never seen her so raunchy. But then again, I'd never seen her. Not really. Only in the mirror, no, I mean the bus stop glass. Sometimes the lovers do not love, and it is all slot A and tab B and grunting. These are words. These are words. Okay, I'll read one more larding. Is this fish yours? I found it choked to death in my hands. I didn't even flinch like Lopsy-daisy because, shit, I don't give a shit, but the shit gives a shit about me, and how can one turn something down when the only alternative is death, dead, dying? Shallow greeting, a limp reply. There's a lot of metaphor here. I can smell it. It smells like shit. It's the sort of shit that yells out, please be nicer to me. Jesus and God are exactly the same, friendly and honest, like bees, or shit. Friendly and honest, like some wet rag of a metaphor or a noose. Loose nuts rang in the new year, like simulated small talk. I don't have anything better to do. Apologies hung between us like grapes, or like hanging shit. Or baby ropes that hope to one day be newsworthy and make the prime time news as metaphors. I miss our long hugs. I miss tugging your boats. Down streets I fled, maybe not sepulchral. What a reception. So the last thing I'm going to do, which requires scissors, when I was going through all my Blaster stuff, I found this envelope that I had never opened. And it says on the back, tiny special snowstorm performance. And the instructions are to cut along the dotted line, hold over your carpet, and shake vigorously. So I have no idea what's in this, but I don't know, sort of picture it. So, and he sent this to me in 2006. And I just sat on it. All right, I feel like I need a drum roll or something. Mrs. Potato Head with a slinky figure is no way to describe a racehorse. Ride like the wind with a gusty buzz, the vicar bled and wires ran from him to an amplifier box, is in reality the story of an undesirable house guest. I don't know if I have time to read all. Face unsaid, I want to make it clear that in spite of what is being written below, I do not contend that dog red hangers created enough weight to constitute a new peninsula, much less silence enough to govern your own barking, darkened lid. I think I should stop there. Thanks, everybody.
Presents from beyond. All right, this wonderful last act with Blaster and me and Alfred at what little cleaning there was. But here he is, Courtney McCullough of the Love Horn.
Almost everybody here knew Blaster very, very, very well. I knew him very well. We all knew him very well. He was a great source of inspiration. My favorite thing probably was the way that he would just bring day-to-day life to life. Much as Megan was saying, he dealt with telemarketers. I always loved the way that he dealt with wrong numbers, which was to engage the person in rather long, lengthy conversation about how, well, you know, John can't come to the phone right now. He got into the gin and gin a little early today. And the person on the other end was almost always somebody who said, he's not supposed to be drinking at all. Well, he's not drinking anymore. He's just kind of laid out on the floor. So you Some people would actually say, that's kind of mean. And I was like, oh, you know, they'll figure it out. Number two, it's the trickster nature. And the trickster nature is very, very important. All I'm going to do is think about Blaster and sing my favorite George Jones song. As an astute audience as this is, you will realize fairly quickly that it is actually just a little novelty song, but I always felt that when George Jones sang this song, it becomes extremely heartfelt and tragic, and it's kind of like a lot of Blaster stuff, which was extremely funny, but always with the kernel of embracing of the downtrodden and the outsider. And an astute audience will also know that this guitar is probably not very well tuned, and that this song is in the key of G. And I forgot to bring the words to it, and I don't really know it. That being said, we may have some divergences here. But it starts off a little bit like this. Last night I broke the seal on a Jim Beam decanter that looks like Elvis. I broke the label off a Flintstone jelly glass jar. I cleared off a place on that table. It was the only thing you left us. And I pulled up a big old piece of floor. I pulled the head off Elvis. I filled Fred up to his pelvis. Yabba dabba doo, the king is gone. So are you. About 10, you know, we all got talking about Graceland, bedrock, and such. Sooner or later, you know, the conversation always gets around to women. None of us get around all that much. Elvis said to find them young. Fred said that old-fashioned girls are fun. song, yabba dabba doo, the king is gone, and so are you. About then I finally realized you wouldn't be coming round no more. The entity that you observe in the mirror may just be yourself. That's for sure. Then I broke Elvis's nose. Then I broke Elvis's nose, pouring the last drop from his toes. Yabba dabba doo, the king is gone, and so are you. Yabba dabba doo, the king is gone, and so are you.
God knows so many people love Blaster, and Blaster loves so many people, but I always felt like there's a special thing between he and Courtney, where Courtney was maybe his oldest son or something. And I have to give Courtney credit. He was the man that got Blaster into the hospital when he had the stroke. He's the one who talked him into it and got him help in time. So big ups for that. And he runs funny. He runs like a girl. But this is intermission. We're having a brief intermission. Madame Dragoul would like you to return the blindfolds. Do not steal them and sell them on eBay. And we'll be back after the intermission with John and Catherine M. Bennett and Lauren Ross and Neil Feather and Dan Breen and Bob Wagner and Eric Franklin. All right. Hello. Welcome back to the second half of this star-studded homage to Blaster L. Ackerman. Next up is the longtime publisher of Lunabasant Productions and the glorious Lost and Found Times, where I know that was the first place I ever read Blaster's words. And this man was the most hard-working writer I know, next to Blaster, who did the most collaborations with Blaster's old pal John M. Bennett and Catherine Bennett.
Albert all these crazy poems I was writing, and he took to messing with them and sending them back, and that went on for some 30 years or more, probably closer to 40 years. I'll read a couple things of mine from a recent book. These are the kind of things he would be messing with. These are poems from a book called Liber X, and they all have the same title, X. Dog load plummets, nor my Play-Doh shimmers in the sardine oil, a lunch of corn and gas, the buns bar off king, the lewd able a congruencia templada con tu borra instante chera, combo in that bottle spinning like my re-acid flux us age, drank the colon fluidoscopy. Oh, las tripas con ríos, los torreados inmentosos, túrgidos que torpes, corren hacia el ladre finado. Look, look, butter, spray, sat down the grunt seat wet, fooler at the rinsing window, aim my beasts a shat for breakfast, him and heave, really dog slosh. Molting like the pages of this book I wrote nut clatters on the floor, a dreaming toast your face contains, or one of snarling clown. The gashed TV, the smoke, a stream gushes through the room, your lifted shoe brims. X. Starch, shadow, luminescent corn nuts, my billowing wake, my twitching, where the blanket steams, the forking dog, the leaf telephone where Dr. Bennett counts his hair, a luck rash limper on the stair, ship-necked, the cheeseless one. The rain gushes from the moon, my drunken train lipid his, the book fog spurting from that page, my double doubting left the grimy index leaking in the gutter, osteoporosis and them skeeter pills. Bunk laden with bloody bricks. X. The drinking shoe, puzzle, nodder, and the foggy burger growing from my neck blaze down at the table where your pamphlet shivers, light bulbs bursting in the steamy hall. The tongue, splintered, quaff, your mileage bowl shit in stitches, choffed me, diary of stains, my pocket water thickened with the crumbs I kept remembered, worm-y, con la lune, indagada mas me sale, fluid e viscoso, le sang con no inocente, me veo aveugle. And a few gems here from this monstrous book. One of the things I enjoyed almost as much as the poems was the explanations he used to give as to how he made them, how he hacked the things I sent him. And here's one such account with the results. Dear Johnny, here's a hack I did of your poems from 2/2/94. Let's see if I can reconstruct the events leading up to the crime. Near as I can recollect, it all began last Saturday at Wig Night, when Catherine and I drank 22 beers between us. For some reason, I woke around 5 the next a.m. with a slight headache and still half asleep. To take my mind off the throbbing and pulsing, I started fooling around with your poems of 2/2/94, interpolating them into a rhyme scheme that occurred to me while I continued to be half asleep. I also used some stuff from an old text on the Cardiff Giant and other quasi-scientific miracles. Before long, I had the hack done. This just goes to show that having 10 or 11 beers And being half asleep is no obstacle if your heart is pure, eh? Saltwater fistula. 96 tears cake the sodden trails, sailors, and electrical language with potential leaves and gloves. Face an altar, unaware whether corn in the skull constipates, where pulp takes form in sheds, bed lamp, painfuls fell from a religious plaque, conditioned sisters of the Cardiff giant, beating the schools of soft animalcules. Everyone in the room knows broken bottles go south to a sailor's hell, Captain Tootsie. And here's another one. Hola, Johnny. Well, I was going to treat you to some of my dictator's notepaper this time, but forgot to stop by the copy machine when I was over at Normal's this morning, so we'll treat you to the dictator next time. If Laura's typewriter here starts doing a lot of don't worry, it's still only going nuts sporadically. Have been going through these new blank style etudes, as you call them. Very interesting. Hypnotic almost. I tried slumps out on Robert Graves, using the cool web to pull words out that would approximate those in slumps, and for the same first letter and same syllable count. At the very end, I cheated a bit, reversing the last 3 lines to achieve a more phonetic cadence. And when I got to the last word, I cheated totally. Say last, scent shrunk, pain night, chill last, how hot, language, black speech of coldly let that die, dumb, plain, pale sky and dark children, chill the crying wastes, rose mad, cool, black, glaring day, cruel, scent, how past fright, selfs, see, last keys, rose too, we pooped. P.S. If the graves lacked any corresponding words, I retained the original from slumps. Swarthy skin like a prune, Albert. Johnny, here's real excitement. The other morning I staggered up and discovered a new hack which I had apparently scrawled during the night. It was done in red crayon on the backs of your poems from 720, forming, be, etc. But since I retain no clear memory of how or even when I did it, my life has been a heady whirl of parties and excess ever since copies of my omnibus volume arrived. I don't guess we'll ever know how this proud beauty came to pass, but here it goes. Well, on another. Mental things that shine are real. The eel is in anchorage. If you are there, suddenly how few are soft-hearted. A slip through curls in a cage always would feel terrible. I would rather have one sock sometimes the hungrier in the bed upstairs, devil worship plumpness, feelings of grandmother's fair retention, climbing steps I recognized as my own basement's vision, bust windows, blinking room. Would I roam, roomy as wrist the underwear on Annabelle Lee? Keep running to the truck. I think this the only way you city folk can go on forming on another. I no longer remember what that word means. Well, whew, Johnny. Won't be long now, eh? I take off on the Amtrak on Wednesday, I think it is, for stately Crowbar Manor. And of course, we'll be looking forward to seeing you guys, signing your copy of the grand masterwork, etc. Had a letter from Monty Canson. yesterday, and he says he's going to try to be there too. The mind staggers or something. Lard and Drippy, Blaster. All right. Here's quite an opus. Produced out of work time. This is August 1995. Dear Johnny, I thought your poem Cascade eerily captured the feeling of that place in Jackson. He's talking about the stately Crowbar mansion, I believe. Just as that shot in Crowbar's vid of the three of you observing it captures a kind of weird Norman Rockwell Jones or vibe. This is a strange place in Jackson, Michigan. Some kind of castle with this bizarre fountain set up on it. Very strange indeed. Took your poem plus others in the group, Barco Lounge, Cheese, etc., and did a hack based on notion of repeating lines. Every 4 lines repeat 2 previous lines, so that the third line in the preceding 4 becomes the first line, and the last line becomes third. Thus, I constructed a poetry machine using phrases and words drawn at random for my recent letter to Carolyn's substitute, plus words and phrases drawn from your poem to create this brooding dyslexia I call promenade. Now my seat is very wet. I feel the cave of license spoon. That hump wanders the sudden buggy cloud. That hump wanders under our sodden pie itching, the sudden buggy cloud, the stage around me, the Windex cocktail. Under our sodden pie itching, I think they make bug thoughts bleed down on the stage around me, the Windex cocktail, and when the corn and mud phone you, I think they make bug thoughts bleed down on the part that is picking through the skins. And when the corn and mud phone you, it's okay, for example, to show reaction, the part that is picking through the skin's penile towel. I'm planning to descend your after drool. It's okay, for example, to show reaction. Stage meets cascade. I'm planning to descend your after drool just before spoon insertion of stage meets cascade. By such means, we come to find a writing on my forearm, just before spoon insertion of lice, tiny muff epic. By such means, we come to find a writing on my forearm, perceived by other people as lice, tiny muff epic, flopping and failing to undress the rabbit. It's perceived by other people as the shaggy fits of Catherine Mansfield. Here's an actual collaboration we did back and forth called Guardian at the Gate. White and runny, phantom diner, off the window slid cheese stands facings, urn stool, Alberto's sweaty lumps, blooping parsley at the gate slobbers, wings flapping feebly, seats barking. Albright's lodge tonsils heave, Cindy's humming buttocks melts your heart, you say, that clerk. Clerk and hotcakes felt your buttocks cream, chipped beef smoke, gleaming threshold, steams that collar in your throat, lodge stalk, short seat, naked shoplifter, lumps of toast you bit her stool's talking turd. On winged cheese, feathered toad inside, whose Johnny came, enthusing in the white. Well, have we got time for me to read, 2 pages here? Sure. All right. something I sent him in August. John remembers. Over the years, I've had the extreme pleasure of sitting and having grand conversations with John M. Bennett. John, in his capacity as neighborhood committee chairperson, has filled me in on local shopping center highway development politics and told me wonderful things about his many hospitalizations and plans for eventual world domination. So when John offered to share part of his memoirs with us for this publication, of course I was thrilled. This portion of his memoirs deals with the Great Depression and how it affected him, his family, and his rather grandiose ambitions. The following is an excerpt from John M. Bennett's personal memoirs. The stock market crash had a big impact on our parents' generation. It also left my generation with some feeling of insecurity. The vivid memories I have of an actual interest in Nazism, even wearing swastika earrings and in-stimulation danglers up my ass, probably did not compare to an eclectic late 90s combination of new wave body adornment. All the same, ours were cheaper, for they were made of but a single rice, that is to say, sinewy gato. The Depression years had a big impact on my life. Going into the 1930s, even in my hometown, I remember struggles for less than $100, especially about these circumstances where shiny floor tongue don't step in it. And how can I forget your shoe I emptied trying to provide negative response from the sight of a nose ring blew the mouth cloud from my mother's face, rich with flitty staring. Flitty staring, yes, and curiously enough, retention fecal. Story mice demand a root lump or annual pagination, cold flock, slight castration, and something rising from the basement sky as bugs formed a cross at the window, resulting in several early commitments for yours truly. Not to mention those bags of chips like the nose cone writing about 4 unmarried young men who thought of nothing but TV, carry-out, etc. That's what coruscated like the very devil for our large family. I know living as a yard creature, half human, half animal, made me feel the effects of aspirin mud. In addition, just as planting flags of ham loaf sprayed with back pants was made for watch junk a par with one foot, the other up my ass, fold poking as ostententious wore my voice from the flapping shorts as I toiled against my father, being concerned about the grocery bill. Upshot, there were many hiking trails made by these 4 young men in the Mary Baker Eddy Forest, which you still use today. I must ask Fabio about this. And there's a brackets here. The following is an overview of an article taken off the internet for some reason. The Great Depression versus St. John the Dwarf by Murph the Surf. Battering was very common, like battering the hell out of eggs, potatoes, and other produce. A silver shirt from the age of 9. I know that unless it was fuck, death, and hate, I did not feel completely comfortable until we kept a lot of thickens in the door, your back sees. Okay. We always had food on the table unless he who created up my ass a shit hoof was not for merchants like Mr. C. Cup. As the mouth moth who farted around with unidentifiable looky bear armpit, I know that it was not for Slinky thrown down the steps, then that crouton monkey up my ass, i.e. life itself, would have been a lot tougher on us as a family of lovely, dimming, rock-faced dregs. From my age on up, there was plenty of opportunity for illustrating the continued oppositional threat that youth subcultural behavior would lush, then lash about like frothing on the pill. I will avoid writing about the political aspect of those times, but looking back, I'm not sure why. I can only wonder that my perch pail, made by these men, wasn't more brimmy so as to express a disdain for the sexual ambiguity you lay face up with when proud skinhead women lost all opportunity for Wookiee logo huffing, either on my father's slave farm or thinning beets and cluck, a fiendish John Eaton-esque symbol associated with cold chains, that the shoehead forehead inverted my painkiller streak and later in the picking years strike out in the big game of life to cultivate the thin both sugar beets and rancid bockwurst. Seize that ripe banana on the wall and grin inanely. As I say, today I will avoid these things, even as I talk and blow at you down your reefed-out stupa king. For a feeling of worthlessness is the test. If it's loam, your trick across the Puna, steady wind we're talking about, and clasp the foul memory of my father and his somersault from an elevated stage into the beet picker hordes. Aye, Captain, or he noshed, he would be caught and sometimes elevated like a beach ball from your mouth, the pink yogurt in a tube when the times were good, the rooster, a slaps coagulant in inflictive hairdo noose when the times weren't so good, as the saying goes. Either way, my father started farming when ordinary people who do not always search for any kind of work were good for forms on the floor. One form I remember in particular. It wrote with stapled anchovies. I am writing about this particular anchovy in order to explain my raisins saved kinda acrid with the evening's olive up my ass. So thank you for sharing with us your knowing what practices, such as scarfing tried to excel, for in blind lavage whose cuckoo labio in doubt led my simmer, or whatever it's scarfed up, these last 10 years in order to avoid the swaying, lamer trail laid out backwards. I believe your spread sausage rain off the wind, so I see behind words a firm stunning waffles at your hat. Many, driven by desperation, resorted to a compost bucket reef inside your shirt just to get soggy in your paper suit, baby, or my name isn't both sugar beets and table beets. Thank you, John, for sharing with us. This book and other fine Ackerman products from Luna Bisonte are available at Normal's fine bookstore. Or if you just can't wait, I have a little bag over here. I can provide you with some of these at a very reasonable rate. And now, C. Merrill Bennett is going to do something.
Thank you. Last night at the Red Room at Normal's, I read from this little booklet that I made. They are hacks that Al did, little Fluxus scores that I have written. I still have about a dozen, baker's dozen of these left I'd like to give away tonight to anyone who was not at the Red Room last night. I'm just going to read a few things that I didn't read last night. These called 6 Pieces, Stolen and Transformed from C. Merrill Bennett by Blaster L. 1. Stand in back of a classroom full of first graders and scream out your name, as in, my name is Bow Wow. Get out of there before anyone can grab you. Number 2. Get all dressed up for the sock hop. Walk across town to the tennis court where the dance is being held. Stand behind the fence and scream out, my name is Bow Wow, until authorities drive you away. Number 3, Bow Wow contest for 2 people. You sit propped up in bed reading a book, but also facing the other person who sits in a chair staring at you questioningly. Every few seconds, glance up from your book and shout, Bow Wow! Do this until the other person complains that you are in his room without being invited. Number 4, hold open front doors so that only your forearm and hand get wet as it is raining outside. Stay there for a long time in that position, shouting, Bow Wow! Until you catch a bad cold. Number 5, at an art gallery with a display of small press chapbooks, leave a small press chapbook with a cover that says, Vengeance of Bow Wow. When no one is looking, start setting fire to the other chapbook. Number 6, and the final one. In jail for arson, pull out a piece of pumpkin pie you have brought with you under your clothes and say to the guards, this is Bow Wow. My little one, is he not beautiful? Before anyone can respond, smash the pie against the wall wet your pants and cry out, murdering devils! It's just a little aside. I told Ackerman that my last pregnancy my labor started when I ate a piece of pumpkin pie. I must have latched onto that. So I'm going to make you work for your little books. If anyone here was not at the Red Room last night and didn't receive a little book, please come to the stage and you must say to me, give me more Bow Wow. And I will give you your little book.
Step up, folks.
Give me more Bow Wow.
Give me more Bow Wow.
Give me more Bow Wow. More Bow Wow, please.
Give me more Bow Wow.
I need more Bow
All right, does anyone need more Bow Wow? No more Bow Wow? Okay, thank you.
Our next wonderful act who goes with this beautiful set design is the visual and performance artist Lauren Ross, who many years ago did a fantastic collaboration theater piece with Blaster L called Familiar Marie. Do you need this mic here? Or?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing.
Talk amongst yourselves.
So how are you? Good.
Something to eat?
Blasterthon.
Sure, what is it?
You just, hold out your palm. Keep it. Tongue. Yeah.
Actually, it's the postcards. Those square, white publisher's survey cards, which I'm so often able to snatch off the head librarian's desk while she's away at lunch or in the can, that make my trips to the ancient downtown public library building worth the risks involved. I go to the library on an average of once a week, although not always every week, and never on the same day. I don't think I can stress it too much, the importance of maintaining random evasive lurker tactics. Otherwise, repetitious behavior, the white effluvium of our careless habits, soon creates a trail behind us, allowing things out there in the city to track us for miles. Yes, thanks to this constant and sleeping vigilance, my identity as the Ringmaster remains a closely guarded secret. It is something totally undreamed of, I am sure, by the other tenants of my building, who, if they bother to notice me at all, probably think me as a harmless recluse, or even an out-and-out fetishist. Poor, blind, deluded devils. Little do they know that at midnight I sit down alone at my table, under my special ceiling fixture, the ceiling single sputtering blue bulb whose business it is to throw my shadow grotesquely across the wall as I don my Mystic Ling hood, ready for Mystic Ling action. But more than this, about the nature of my secret Ling regimen, I am naturally not at liberty to reveal. I can only venture to add that the Mystic Ling hood has a very long, rich, and complicated history. One perhaps dating back to the night when Earl Long, then governor of Louisiana, deplaned an airport wearing a pillowcase over his head. A makeshift hood, as it were, in the center of which had been cut a single eye hole, which, illuminated by the many popping flash bullets down on the field, the governor's bloodshot orb majestically glared and darted. A great historical ling moment. Nowadays, of course, the mystic ling hood is yellow, not white, but enough! To disclose more would be to invite calamity for obvious reasons. My brother's name was Boz Meg. He was snatched outside a movie theater in this very city 2 years ago by the Bug Randolphs, a fresh family of large, sentient black beetles. Now, whenever I try to phone his apartment, all I hear is the receiver being lifted in a long silence, followed by a series of dry, clicking sounds, like tiny feet scrabbling in the dark at the bottom of a brown paper lunch sack. My mother became lost to us when I was 8, of her own volition entirely, my father says, becoming a bonded chattel to the Araby Society. I caught sight of her once on 29th Street, dressed like a milkmaid, but I didn't dare approach her or make any sign, because it would have aroused the anger or interest of her priest. Priests of the Araby Society are said to each resemble a single amputated leg, although with the saffron-colored scarves they wear about in public, they remain so swaddled, it's hard to tell precisely what they look like. Was my mother weeping or laughing? Both, I think. I have devised numerous strategies to confound and elude these marauders. On my trip to the library last week, never mind which day it was, I began by first entering the closet of my room and remained there for 45 minutes instead of going directly out the door, which may, on the face of it, sound like a big waste of time. I was, however, merely utilizing the principle of unexpected closet lurking. As this variety of maneuver is extremely difficult for an enemy to anticipate. Later, when I actually left my room, I sensed the possibility of menace on the back stairs, and so went down by the front way. I proceeded along the library building, following a circuitous route that involved matching my steps to the secret algebra of every third, then every fourth traffic light. I also spent 17 minutes loitering near the magazine rack and big value drugs, and added a limp to my gait for the remaining 6 blocks. Certainly, however, I was amply repaid for my trouble. Not only did I reach the library safely, but I also arrived just in time to filch an especially fine publisher's survey card from the librarian's desk. There was one requesting feedback on a glossy new art book entitled Roy Lichtenstein, American Pop Painter. I had no sooner slipped this card in my pocket than the librarian returned from the can. Was there something you needed help with? Those damn little books how you... Those damn little books how you build a model airplanes with? Where those little books go? I replied. That night, after I returned to my lair, I ritualistically drank a glass of Mogan David wine, and then donned my ling hood and got down to work. Roy Lichtenstein, American Pop Painter, I said across the top of the card. Please take the time to fill this card out and return it to publisher Barton House, Inc., postage prepaid, mailed inside the USA. I was particularly delighted with this publisher's first question. How did you come to order this book? After a good deal of thought, I seized my pen and in my best crabbed, spidery ling hand wrote, I've been wondering that myself. In fact, I thought I was ordering a book by the great Max Spruill Lichtenstein fetish drawings. You know the kind men like with the big German babes and reindeers? But this Lichtenstein isn't anything like that. In fact, it has all the earmarks of a real stiff. Nothing but dots. B-O-R-I-N-G. Sure hope Max Sproul Lichtenstein hasn't cracked up or something. Yours in baffled rage. So, it is at these moments that a league master can truly experience the destiny of his calling, crowning the perfect card with the perfect crank signature. Next day, after executing certain evasive maneuvers through a vacant lot and twice around the park, I dropped my card in a mailbox in front of my building. The end.
Art handling.
Art handling.
Only the finest.
From a distance.
Sorry about that.
I thought that thing was really made of bricks.
The hearth warmer.
I split my pants.
I wet my zipper.
Shiny zipper.
The hood has been removed.
Shades of Andre Schnitzel performance.
Andre Schnitzel?
Andre Schnitzel.
I'd love some delicious Andre Schnitzel.
It's okay, we'll clean it out.
You guys, leave any messages for poor guys whistle? That's my stage name.
At least the Plymouth Rock.
Scrub, Gina, scrub.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
This is the best part of the whole evening for me, by the way.
Oh! Was that your voice?
No, Gerald got that talking cardboard.
No, I was just back here with my, my marionette. My piano. It's not that
Soon we'll have the grand finale of
I'm so
Feather
sorry.
Green.
Yeah, we're going to take a little.
Franklin and Wagner.
We'll have a little bit of the stage change around, 5 minutes or so, but please stay in this area. We too have special effects. All visual. All visual. All visual. Good evening. We're the Dirty Dozen. And Blaster, we love him so much. And we're going to feature my plagiarism, our plagiarism of him, since he's such a great plagiarist. And we will ask the musical question, did you steal my watch?
No, be followed.
What?
Be followed. That's what these collect, yeah.
Excellent. Where did you get that? Do you have a hive?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
It's very sweet.
It's very precious, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very nice. And fairly big and strong.
Yeah. KGB is watching us.
watch paint dry, this is about as close as you guys get.